Good morning. No, for those of you who are wondering, I am not dead, but I do have a new chair. You like it? I don't know. My thoughts are, I don't know. I think it's not quite as cool as the last one, to be honest. Don't tell anybody. But the last one was like totally falling apart. It had like 3 tears in it. It was on its way out. And all good things must come to an end. So there goes the end of the life of that chair. Anyway, this is The Road to LGM. So this is the series where I talk about the things that I've done over the past week, or in this case, 2.5 weeks. Oops, it's been a while since the last upload. In order to improve and get better at competitive programming. So let's start with what's new. Quick announcement, actually, before we start. There is an Algorithms Live episode happening quite soon, November 11th, 2021. This is a series that I've loved. It's a terrific series on competitive programming. If you're interested in this channel, you're almost certainly interested in what this channel has to offer. And this is run by my friend Matt. He hasn't uploaded too many videos recently, but we're making quite a comeback, at least with this one, with an episode that I made with him. We recorded it over the weekend, and it'll be posted Thursday morning around the Codeforces round time, so 8 a.m. Pacific time, or possibly a different time if you're in a different time zone, because time zones are a little sketchy. So yeah, there's a little bit of pun with my name here, and I'll be part of it. It should be fun. We'll see. Okay, so there's the announcement. Next, let's jump into things I've done, practiced, and learned over the past week. So first was this UCF programming team contest. Although there were 2 weekends, for one of the weekends it was kind of like an off week for the programming team. So I only did one contest for that. And yeah, it looks probably quite a bit worse than it is. So I did get 4th place. But okay, first one, this doesn't count because none of these are legit submissions. Second, it looks like I have no dark greens, when in fact I do have a dark green here. At least one of these is a dark green. This M is a dark green. And I think something else here is a dark green too. This A is also a dark green. So I have at least 3 dark greens, although I don't get them because I'm like an unofficial team. So yeah, I don't know. I might have other dark greens. I'm not really sure, but I have like at least those 3, I think, if I see correctly. So yeah, so I'm not doing terribly there. Finally, you might wonder, David, what is up with your penalty? Why are you losing on penalty here and this other thing? Well, for one, I only have one person, right? These 2 people, or these 2 teams that beat me, both have 3, so there's that. And 2, problem H is a catastrophe. I'll talk about it in just a moment here, but it's a good problem. It's just this particular instance of it did not go well. Not for me. It wasn't a my fault thing. This is problem has issues. Okay, so what am I talking about here? It's a cool problem. So the problem is you have n-1 hat hooks and n hats. And you can wear one hat, and then every other hat hook will have a hat on it. Now, you get to choose the initial order of which hats go on which hat hooks. After you do that, you've got one hat on, and then every other hat is on one of the hooks, and you have no extra hooks left over. And you have a bunch of events. So each time there's an event, you go put the hat that you need on, and then you go to the event, and then you come back. And then you get ready for the next one. And to get ready for an event, you figure out which hat you need. If you're already wearing it, you just go to the event. Otherwise, you walk to the hook that has the hat you need. You switch the hat you have with the hat you need, and then you have the one you need, and then you go walk back out the door. So to walk to the first hook costs 1 time unit, the second hook costs 2, and so on. So yeah, here's the problem if you just want to read it. The really ambiguous part is which hat do you start wearing? Now, the assumption that I made in my first submission, which is pretty clearly not true, is that the hat for the first convention is always hat 1. Now, this isn't there's not really a reason to believe that, but what it says is that you're already wearing the first one, the first hat, is my assumption, but it might be the hat for the first convention. That's the part that I felt was unclear. Let me know what you think. Am I crazy here? I don't know. Apparently lots of other UCF teams didn't have an issue with it, so maybe I'm crazy. The other thing, in addition to this, they say in the output, this should include every hat except the first. So you print all of the hats except the first. What is the first? Is this the first hat? Is this the hat for the first thing? I don't know. I assumed it was the first hat, and I assumed this is wearing the first one means you're wearing hat number 1. Turns out that's not the correct interpretation. You are indeed wearing the hat for the first event, and you print everything except the hat for the first event. So yeah, I was wrong. Whatever. There were 2 interpretations. Maybe I just can't read. Who knows? No, so I have an even better excuse, which was I asked this as a clarification request because it was pretty clearly unclear. And I got the response that you wear hat 1 first. This is just flat out wrong. Now, to be fair to the judges, the judges doing this were not the people who wrote the problems. So the judges doing this were UCF coaches, and they're great people. They're terrific coaches. They do a great job at that and running the site and everything. So they're absolutely amazing. But from a contestant's point of view, this is kind of a killer, right? When you're when you're told one thing and you're directly told this is the correct way to interpret the problem, and then all of a sudden it turns out that it's not. That's hard to come back from, right? It's like, that's a kicker, because you're like, okay, well then clearly it's not that I'm misinterpreting the problem, right? It's that something in my code is wrong, or my solution idea is wrong, or something. No, my code was fine, solution idea was right. It's just I did not understand the same thing that the problem writers intended for me to with this problem. Okay, so yeah, that was problem H, bit of a disaster. That wound up being about 2 hours between when I had the first correct solution, right idea, with no major issues, to AC, and 6 extra submissions, which I didn't need on that problem. So yeah, there's that. I spent at least 30 minutes between writing a brute forcer, submitting the brute forcer, figuring out what the heck was going on. If I had that 30 minutes back, I almost certainly could have solved problem G, because I was probably like 15 or 20 minutes away from an AC on G at the end. And then also problem L, I burned about an hour on problem L. I actually think I didn't do that bad of a job with it. The only issue is my solution to L is way more difficult than it needs to be. Like, I solve L that would work for bounds up to like R equals 20. I'll show you problem L if you're interested in it real quick. You can pause. I won't talk about it or the solution, but yeah, you can pause it if you're interested. So R goes up to 14. My solution solves it for R up to like 25. But I wasn't sure if a 2 to the R quantity squared solution was legit or not. I thought that might TLE because it's like 10 to the 9 over 4, which is, I don't know, maybe that's fine. It's like 1 or 2 seconds, but I was scared that might TLE. In hindsight, I probably just should have trusted in the heart of the cards, because it'll probably be fine. But yeah, I wasn't sure. So instead, since I saw there was a better solution, I went with it, and that was a like convex hull optimization trick, which ended up working. Surprisingly, like, I coded up the whole thing. The first time I hit run, it all just worked. The only problem was I had some overflows from ints because I was squaring some big numbers. But yeah, using longs fixed that. And it was actually pretty clean for what it was. So I'm not too upset with that. I thought it went pretty well. So on top of the dark greens and like L, I solved a harder version of it, and H was kind of a disaster. And the only problem that I really got beaten on was G. I feel like I probably could have done better. So although the scoreboard looks really bad, I don't think it's actually quite that bad. All right, that's the programming team stuff. Additionally, I worked on this code forces round, just kind of as practice. I VP'd it. I wasn't able to do it live, but yeah, this kind of pointed out something that I really have to improve on, and that is the fact that I use Java, and this kind of killed me in this contest. So A was easy, B was also easy, and C was also easy. All 3 of them, I read the problem in like 5 minutes, knew how to do it. Little bit of implementation for B and C, but not the end of the world. For B, 34 minutes in, I have a correct solution, just TLEs because I picked the wrong language, apparently. So I'm like, well, this is practice to get better. After a contest, I can see if like there's actually an issue and this is n squared, or if it's just Java. It was just Java. Solution's totally right. It's just a little slow. And C is the same thing. It's TLE just because it's Java. It ACs in like 3.5 seconds or something. And the time limit's like, I guess, let's see. Okay, time limit's 3 seconds. This one takes like 4.5 seconds. And then B, time limit's like 2 seconds, and I take like 3.5 or something. Yeah, time limit's 2, I take like 3.5. So it's like, I'm within double the time limit. It's just really tight for no reason. Maybe the part of it is that I'm using like recursive segment trees instead of iterative segment trees, but it's silly. Like, it passes in C++, I'm almost sure. So there's not really any reason to get that tight on it. And then it's probably unlikely that I would have had time to solve other ones, but after this TLE on B and C, I'm like, this is demoralizing. So the next couple of days, I thought about, is there any good way for me to try and convert Java code to C++ code automatically? And I had a couple ideas. If you have any ideas, I'd love to hear them. Feel free to either like leave them in the comments or make a Codeforces blog with your idea. Or if you know of a tool that exists that does this, that would be the best, of course, if I can just like plug it in. But what I'd like is some ability to just copy Java code, paste it somewhere else, and then have it be faster. That's the dream, right? Yeah, I don't know how doable that is. It's like there are a lot of things that make it tricky, and I won't go into all of them here. Maybe that'll be a separate discussion later. But yeah, I was thinking possibly like there's this abstract syntax tree route of like parse the Java abstract syntax tree, try and figure out what's going on. That has its own issues of it's difficult, and then also the Java abstract syntax tree and the C++ abstract syntax tree might be very different. Like the way you do some things in Java, the syntax tree is not necessarily very tightly related with the way you do it in C++. They might be quite disjoint. So at some point, it might be easier to be modifying the code as a string, not as like a tree. And then the issue with that is like, well, how do you know what a variable is just by its name, right? You don't necessarily know the type, and then you have to do some lookup things. And then if you're not parsing it for the type, then it's like a mess. So you have to know the type of all the variables, and then like it's tricky. And then also the other thing is like libraries. What do you do about libraries? Like tree sets in Java and sets in C++ have very different sets of functions. Obviously, like it's not really possible to go backwards from C++ to Java, or it's not possible to go backwards and still like be remotely fast, because lambdas are very common in C++, and just in Java they will TLE to infinity. So yeah, you can't go backwards, but you can probably go forwards. It's just hard. So yeah, that's a hard problem. And that is number one on the tools and stuff I need in order to be successful. Additionally, we've got some possible Hackpack additions. I won't talk about them now, but these might be some things that I work on for next week or whatever. But yeah, I thought this might be helpful to have and like to keep updated as far as some list of progress and ways to make progress. Hopefully this will be a bit more regular coming up, and make sure you check out the Algorithms Live episode. Anyway, thank you all for watching. I'll see you on the scoreboard, and have a great day.